this boycott is no joke. I mean, really and truly no joke. We've talked about this before, right? The power of the conservative voice, and people in the GOP, specifically real MAGA folks, right, didn't appreciate what went down recently, 10 days ago, with the MAGA sort of slight, if you would, more than a slight. You had the Heiress, the woman who's got billions of dollars, like $18 billion that she is worth, coming out and taking a full page ad in the New York Times because she wanted to encourage people to protest against Trump. Well, what has happened? People are protesting against Walmart. Oh, yeah. They were already kind of sick of Walmart because Donald Trump was like, hey, Walmart, you're going to eat those tariffs, after Walmart said, hey, we're going to raise prices. So you got a few things going on. And I'll tell you, she really picked the wrong crowd to take issue with. And the company knows this. Okay, the company really and truly knows this. And so what are they going to do? They're going to eat the tariffs. Yes, they are going to eat the tariffs. That news just coming today, just a short time ago, a couple of hours ago, as they made an announcement here, a plan, if you would, a plan to, bring prices down for everyday consumers. I guess that means they really are eating the tariffs, so to speak. This is Donald Trump wanted them to do. Anti-Prime Day is what they're calling it. You see, Amazon has its Prime Day, and so this is their version of the anti-Prime Day, where they're going to try and outdo Amazon with better and better deals. Again, trying to lure back all those MAGA shoppers that were like, we don't want anything to do with this. We went through some of these tweets. I mean, people are really, really mad. And so as we look at the stock price right now, I got to tell you, it is higher at this moment. And part of that is what we're seeing overall in the market, right? The market having this sort of sense of relief that maybe things might actually be coming to a strong and good and peaceful resolution there in the Middle East. And as a result of that, you have oil moving lower, which is sort of the antithesis of what people would think would happen. And in addition, you have the market higher. So this is actually really good news, I think, for the economy. But as I look at what Barron's was saying just the other day, you had the longest stretch for shares of Walmart in 20 years, with the company just going down, 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 down. And why was it going down, 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 down? It was going down because the heiress to Walmart decided to get clever and put this big ad in the New York Times. I'm really close to the camera today. Sorry, this is the makeshift studio that we're dealing with, so you get to see me right up close and in person. Anyway, the Walmart heiress breaking ranks, joining that anti-Trump movement, and that was a big deal. Here she is. She was married to actually the son of Sam Walton, who was the founder, of course, of the company, and used to pride himself on American made. Remember, until, I guess the 90s came around and China all of a sudden started making everything. And so this company has such a tradition, and she enjoys the lifestyle that she enjoys. Let's be honest. Why? Because of the conservative base that shops at Walmart. So you really don't want to tick us off now, do you? Right? Because, we mean business. I think that we showed that, did we not, with the Bud Light situation? And we showed it with Target. And so the company, to its credit, is like, whoa. So they're running from her as fast as they can. I mean, they even put out a statement within minutes saying, we condemn violence, including when it's directed towards law enforcement and damaging of property. As a company with associates and customers in the Los Angeles region, we remain focused on their safety and that of the impacted associates. This is when the No Kings protests were happening. This is by Vice President Dan Bartlett from Walmart, who went on to say the advertisements from Christy Walton are in no way connected, nor are they endorsed. Ooh, that's tough, right? Christy, get with the program. They're like, hey, you know what? You're lucky. You got 2% of the company, but she's not on the board, and she doesn't play any role in the decision-making at Walmart. And so now the company's like, gosh, we don't want this to take off in any way, shape, or form. So what are we going to do? We're going to put in our anti-Prime Day. We're going to go head-to-head. They've tried it before, but apparently the sales are better than ever. I don't know if it's going to work, because actually I think that MAGA voters aren't really that motivated by money. I mean, really, right? At the end of the day, sure, they like a good deal. Who doesn't like a good deal? But simultaneously, there's a lot of anger and frustration directed at this woman. She has a history of donating to very liberal projects, including, look at that, the Lincoln Project. Conservative group opposed to Trump. She was the host of a fundraiser in Jackson Hole for Kamala Harris's presidential campaign. Historically, you really haven't seen Walmart folks get into politics like that, but she did so. And look, I mean, the reality is she's paying the price. The company's paying the price, or at least it did for 10 days. I think right now, at this particular moment in time, as we watch this recovery in the markets, that's super exciting to see. I mean, the natural sort of, I think, expectation that many people had was, you know what, things are going to be kind of dicey. They're going to be kind of tough. And what do you know? We got a market, Dow Jones Industrial Average, it's up 0.8%, S&P trading up almost 1%, NASDAQ up almost 1%. Why? Because people are like, okay, you know what? He's willing to do something that actually might really make a difference in the course of history. Don't forget, a lot of presidents had this opportunity. Nobody, thank goodness, nobody was killed. They just went in there and with such precision that there was no air defense, obviously, in Iran over the weekend. I was at my cousin's house nearby in New Hampshire when I got the news, and we were just like, wow, this is really a very aggressive move, brave move, in the sense that, it's kind of one of those risks, but a calculated risk. And so he's making a calculated risk that in Iran without nuclear capability is a safer world for all of us. And that was the goal there as they went to take out that nuclear capability. So it's really pretty fascinating. We're in the early stages, early stages, of course, of all of this. And there's going to be much more to come. But what I would say in terms of Walmart shares, yeah, they may suffer a boycott. People may be angry. They may not go back even for the good deals that you're going to get in the anti-prime days. However, they're also going to benefit from these lower oil prices if these stick. And this sense that who's really going to be in trouble here, it might actually be China when you think about it, right? Because the Straits of Hormuz, all the oil that comes through that, you're talking about, 20% of the global oil supply that comes through there. And if Iran decides to block it, I'm not so sure they would, because that's kind of one of those, Hail Mary kind of moves. If they block that, then they're cutting off their nose to spite their face, because then they don't get any revenue, right, from the oil as well. And it also signals to the international community that they don't want to come on board and play ball. So again, as we look at shares of Walmart, they are trying, the management team there is trying to say, okay, let's extend an olive branch to the Trump community. Let's try and figure out how we can do this, how we can eat the tariffs, really and truly. I mean, that's what's amazing here. Donald Trump writing recently on Truth Social, Walmart should stop trying to blame tariffs. Don't forget, they did that on an earnings call. They were like, look, the tariffs are going to cost more money. We're going to have to inflate prices, etc. Stop trying to blame tariffs as the reason for raising prices throughout the chain. Walmart made billions of dollars, he said last year, far more than expected between Walmart and China. They should, as it is said, eat the tariffs and not charge valued customers anything. I'll be watching. And so will your customers. So he made a big point of this. The media is like, they can't eat the tariffs, right? I think share prices were reacting to this in addition to the boycott. Bessent went on television, NBC, and said, you bet they can eat the tariffs, and they're going to eat the tariffs. And hey, you know what we learned today? They're eating the tariffs.
The tax cuts as well. But let me ask you about Walmart. This big news from Walmart. It says it will start raising prices on its consumers, Mr. Secretary, as early as this month due to the tariffs. Now, President Trump out with a very stern warning on social media saying Walmart, quote, should eat the tariffs, adding the company made far more than expected last year. Is the president asking American companies to be less profitable?
I was on the phone with Doug McMillon, the CEO of Walmart, yesterday, and Walmart is, in fact, going to, as you describe it, eat some of the tariffs that just as they did in 18, 19, and 20. The other thing, though, that we are seeing that Doug passed along to me, that with their consumer, the single most important thing is the gasoline price. And gasoline prices have collapsed under President Trump. So we are seeing that. The other thing that will happen, that is a direct tax cut for consumers. Then the transportation costs are also a big input. So let's see what happens. what you were describing was Walmart's earnings call. The other thing that companies have to do, they have to give the worst case scenario so that they're not sued. So, I think overall we are seeing a decline in services, inflation, and we saw inflation come down for the first time in 4 years.
Boom.
Well,
And
in my conversation.
here's the amazing thing, you guys. Even though we're looking at this increasing controversy overseas, and I know it's really too early. You can't count your chickens before they hatch. I get it. But just judging by market reaction today, there's a hope and an expectation that this is going to be good for the United States. And so, Walmart is actually trading up almost 2%, 1.78%. So they're doing a couple of things. One, they're eating the tariffs, right? They're coming out with all the, they're going to go head to head with Amazon and come up with better prices for Prime Day. They are distancing themselves as much as they can from that heiress who made those comments. And then there's the other reality that this actually, what we saw happen over the weekend, may actually bode very, very well for oil prices. Don't forget as well that the U.S. itself has been aggressively working, especially within the fracking industry, over the last several years. And since Donald Trump came into office and said, we're going to open it up, you know what? Drill, baby. That means that the U.S. has better energy independence. And that's a big deal too, right? Really, really big deal. I'm just looking at shares of Walmart. This is actually as of Friday. So one of the great things that we're seeing today is that, whether you want to say it's great or not, I get it. Like, people are annoyed with Walmart and maybe you're boycotting them, but I'm getting outside of the Walmart shares here for just a minute and thinking in a very macro terminology, because from a macro standpoint, right? We want all companies to do well, and we want the ability of all of them to succeed. Let me see if I can bring this to you. This is kind of an interesting chart. This was in the Wall Street Journal this morning, and it shows you here 1977 pre-Iranian revolution, just exactly what the U.S. had in terms of net imports on petroleum and refined products per capita in barrels. And you can see that we were in bad shape. We needed to import everything we could from overseas. And even when you go to the Gulf War, we were very, very dependent, even in the Iraq War. And then all of a sudden, look at today, we have become a net exporter of energy. In other words, we have plenty here. We have enough. And that is a huge plus, especially when we're dealing with what we're dealing with right now. Again, I just want to say, my heart goes out to everyone there, to our service members over there. Of course, of the strike in Qatar, and that, at least from what we know right now, no individuals were hurt in that. So very good news. And it's being viewed as a bit of a de-escalation, right? A de-escalation, because they admitted when they announced the news, Iran did, that no one had been hurt. So that's lots of good things. Again, 10 straight days of decline for Walmart. They're reversing some of that right now. Again, as the world, I think, becomes more optimistic, more and more optimistic. It's something that we're talking about in today's edition of 76 Research. I encourage you to get my newsletter there. Rob and I write 76 Research. We have a little financial firm, my very good friend of many years and brilliant investor. And there's a lot of good ideas for you there. And it will help you make sense of what's going on, because this is, I think, just a wonderful sort of moment in time when you see everybody on the same page. Well, that is, except for, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and a few sort of uber liberal progressives. But I think the expectation and the hope is that we're going to actually come to some sort of peaceful resolution here, and you're going to be able to contain what was very much a concern and a crisis point in the Middle East. I want to go over to McDonald's right now. McDonald's suffering a boycott of its own. Can you believe this one? This is a different kind of boycott. This is not one of the MAGA style boycotts, so we don't know if it's really going to have the same kind of sticking power, shall we say. But it is a company that decided to get rid of its DEI program because of the 2023 Supreme Court ruling and the reality that somebody else is in charge of the White House, and they're actually going to hold companies responsible So if you're putting in like ABC, all these DEI programs, they're even going back in history and saying, hey, did you used to do this? And if so, we're going to hold you responsible for that. You know, the FCC has launched that investigation into Disney. So McDonald's is trying to distance itself, and that doesn't sit so well with some members of the liberal crowd. It's why they got a nationwide protest going on, a boycott planned for this week, June 24th. And so this is all because, oh gosh darn it, they got rid of DEI. So they're going on an economic blackout tour. The People's Union, it's called. They also are targeting Target and Walmart. Boy, poor Walmart. It's getting it from all angles, right? All ends. Anyway, they're urging Americans to refrain from shopping at some of these places. Don't go to McDonald's, they say, between the 24th and the 30th. And, you know, it's just one of the companies, again, that is suffering from this. We've seen a host of them actually dealing with this. And as I said, from both sides, I do think that the left doesn't quite have the staying power, shall we say, of conservatives on the right. And the conservatives were really upset. So I think that was enough for Walmart to kind of recognize, oh, we got a problem here. It was enough for Bud Light to recognize it had a problem, and certainly Target as well. All of those companies have started to change their ways, and McDonald's now is getting hit from the left. It's a grassroots movement, they say, a grassroots movement to end this economic injustice and have more accountability, more justice for the working class. You know, of course, they have a funny way of going about it, if you would, just to go to some of their demands. The People's Union claiming McDonald's does the following, which is the group's reasoning, if you would, behind this boycott, saying they exploit tax loopholes, they don't pay their fair share. Gosh, I've heard that one before. Have you guys heard that one before? Makes me think of one AOC, makes me think of one Bernie Sanders, right? This is a very common complaint. They don't pay their fair share. Oh, while we're at it, makes me think of Elizabeth Warren as well. Engage in price gouging while wages stay low. Oh, you know, because prices went up because there's that little thing called inflation. And so, yeah, it costs like 20 some odd bucks to get like Big Mac and fries in New York City these days. Guys, I'll tell you, you elect this new mayor that you're talking about electing, it's going to go up even more. And then they had this issue. They support political figures who threaten democracy. Well, you know what that would be. In their view, that's Donald Trump. So the left doesn't like Donald Trump. Therefore, if a corporation does anything that seems like it may be in support of Donald Trump, then boom, you know what? They're done. They're going to be the subject of the left's boycott. They practice performative diversity, equity, and inclusion with no meaningful change. Well, I would argue they're not even practicing it anymore, right? Again, because of the Supreme Court ruling on that. And overall, they're just mad because it's a corporation that prioritizes profits over people, community, and truth. I mean, come on, like you just move to a socialist country, okay? People's Union, you know what? Or you can move to New York City pretty soon because that's getting kind of socialist. We're going to talk about that coming up. But here's the reality. We're in a capitalist nation, and capitalism, I get it. It's not perfect. I'm not going to tell you it is, but it sure darn beats the alternative, don't you think? And you go around the world, you take your pick. And you know, there's nothing like this country. Peace of my mind says, Trish doesn't look like she ever eats at McDonald's. You'd be surprised. Peace of my mind. I like my McDonald's like anyone else, okay? Plain hamburger, nothing on it, nothing but the meat in the bun. You know me, I don't like ketchup, relish, mustard, any of those things. Salt, okay, but none of the other things. French fries and a Diet Coke. Gosh, I sound a little like Trump, do I not? Anyway, I've been known to have some McDonald's, my share of McDonald's. So maybe I should go tomorrow, right? In light of the boycott, we can help support the companies that the left so despises at this moment in time. We have a lot going on, though. I just think that this is amazing, everything that's happened there in the Middle East in the last 48 hours. I mean, again, I told you I was Saturday night, I got this news. And even debated coming on with you over the weekend, but I thought, you know what, let's let it settle. Let's see how this all shakes out. I was optimistic, and I, even as I was looking at the futures market last night on Sunday evening, was like, wow, you know, like the futures, they're not that upset. Like investors are not that upset, which tells you that the smart money actually really believes, if you would, that there's an opportunity for some peaceful resolution here and that maybe the world is a little bit safer.